one thing I know is that, which is really an interesting fact, the first time you came up and were sworn in, and just for full disclosure,
yeah.
Debbie and I are in the same family. She is a cousin through marriage, so I do know some dirt.
Yeah.
I know some stuff. I don't know dirt.
Right.
But if I knew dirt, I wouldn't tell you anyway, because it's a family thing.
That's right.
But one thing that was really great, the very first time you were being sworn into Congress, one of your college roommates was there, and she brought a picture when you were in college that you made a field trip to Washington, D.C.,
right.
standing on the steps of Congress,
Yep.
saying, one day, I'm going to serve here. Wow. So that's, and there's a very powerful message in that. It's when you're young, when you're envisioning, when you're setting your dreams, because sometimes achievements happen because it's incremental steps, and it's belief. So that's one of our words of wisdom. We always like to kind of take a moment and step back. So now you're in college, and your husband, Steve,
yes.
Who happens to be my sister's husband's first cousin.
Right.
That's kind of how this all works together. How did you meet Steve?
I actually didn't meet Steve in college. We both went to the University of Florida, but he was 2 years older than me, and we have a lot of the same friends and people that we knew. But we didn't meet till I was done with college, and I moved down to South Florida because I was hired out of graduate school to work for my predecessor. I had by then been involved in a lot of different things politically, had interned for a New York State Assemblyman and for a city commissioner in Gainesville, and was involved in College Democrats, and worked on the Dukakis for President campaign and Biden for president and a whole bunch of different things. And so I knew that I wanted to be a legislative aide because I wanted to work in the legislative process. And when I moved down to South Florida, I was hired by Peter Deutsch. He's a former congressman. He was a state representative then. I was hired by him to be his legislative aide. And so literally about a couple weeks after I moved down, I met my husband at a softball game. I had one friend in South Florida who I went to sleepaway camp with, and who I knew, all through childhood since I was 12 years old.
And sleepaway camp's not boyfriend camp.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
This was sleepaway camp, like, go and sleep in a tent and play sports and have fun in the summertime. So she introduced, I went with her to her brother's softball game. My husband was playing on her brother's team. Like I said, she was really the only one I knew in South Florida, so I pretty much hung out with her for most weekends. And she introduced us at the end of the game, and nice to meet you. And I left the game and didn't think anything. You've heard this story a million times. I left the game and didn't think anything else about it. So the next morning, she called me and she said, Debbie, that guy Steve really thought you were cute. And my response was, Steve who? Because it was just, and my husband has heard this story retold more times than he prefers. It was just though you meet those people like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. We all do that. And it was not something that was burned in my brain. But I said, oh, wow, that's great. So she reminded me who he was. And we got together at this bar called the Parrot Lounge in Fort Lauderdale, where we usually went on the weekends, and just to kind of be in the same room so we could, I guess, really size each other up. And we did that. I spent some time talking to him. Do you want me to tell the rest of this story? Okay. I'll try to speed it up. I tell a long story. But the abbreviated version is, at the Parrot Lounge, I was really looking to try to, just meet more people. Like I said, I only knew her. And so I was going to get involved in Jewish Federation because, that again, Jewish Federation for me was a way that you could give back to the community and also meet people that thought like me and wanted to be involved in the Jewish community and making life better for folks. And so I was going to go to this picnic that the Jewish Federation was having for young leadership people. But I was going to go with her, my girlfriend. Well, she wasn't too interested in going to the picnic, so she says at the Parrot Lounge that night, oh, Debbie, why don't you take Steve? Well, I hadn't really decided whether it was, I wanted to go beyond that night with Steve. And so my husband, being very intuitive and sensitive, by the way, noted that there wasn't excitement, written all over my face about that suggestion. So he said, why don't you just, Stacy has my number, call me if you want me to go. So, we made arrangements to go, and by Saturday, this was Thursday, by Saturday, I was thinking, maybe I really don't want to do that. So it poured rain on that day, and of course you can't go to a picnic in the pouring rain. So, darn, it was canceled. Okay, I'm off the hook. So Steve, being the very determined and focused individual that he is, who apparently really wanted to see me, he called me and said, "Well, let's go to a movie instead." So, okay, so we'll go to a movie. So we go to a movie, and he gets to my apartment an hour and a half before the movie. So he comes to my apartment, and what do you do with someone you don't know that well that you're going to go to a movie with, where normally you wouldn't have to talk that much, and you could. Now I have an hour and a half before the movie, and so of course the first thing that came to my mind was to ask him what he thought about the death penalty. I'm not making this up. You would think that I was determined to not have him have any interest in me whatsoever.
Maybe have fear.
Yeah, right. So we didn't agree on the death penalty, and back then we didn't really agree on a lot politically. He considered himself a Republican, I found out, and so he was really racking up the points with me right from the beginning. And so we chatted about that for a while and went to the movie. Had a really nice afternoon. He went out and had a softball game, and I thought, okay, if I go out with him again, great. If not, that's fine too. But now here's the thing, and this might be one of the things that we should edit, but I'll tell you. Now, I was not someone who, in high school, went out with a million guys, and I had boyfriends occasionally, but I was, like I said, not super popular in that regard. So don't get me wrong, it's not that I thought I was so great, but you get the sense when you think someone likes you and the date went well and everything's good. So I figured he would call me. So this was Sunday. Monday comes, he doesn't call, no call. That's okay. Maybe it didn't go as well.
The death penalty thing,
right.
did it?
You think that was it?
It could be.
So no call. And I was like, okay, I thought he was sort of interested. But fine, he might call Tuesday. So Tuesday comes, no call. It's like, oh, okay. Well, he called on Wednesday and asked me to go out Saturday. We ended up going out Saturday, and I have to tell you the rest of the story. We go out Saturday, and we're supposed to go to the movie again, and he decided we should go to see Rocky IV. So, you first go out with someone, and you're not going to really say no or complain. Okay, we went to the movie I wanted to last week. This week, it's your turn. So my husband will be, early to his own funeral. So we get to the movie theater several minutes early, at least 10 minutes early. We're walking around the inside of the movie theater, and this was when Harry Met Sally first came out. I mean, so it was still in theaters. Yeah, I mean, you're going to know the end of the story by now. So I just looked up at the marquee and I said, wow, when Harry Met Sally, I really want to see that movie. But I didn't mean that night. I just said, at some point. So my husband's such a good guy. He said, oh, you want to see that movie? That's great. Fine. Let's go see that. It was playing at the same time. I was like, no, you want to see Rocky IV? He's like, no, you want to see When Harry Met Sally. That's what we're going to do. So I was like, great. But I have to tell you, all the guys that I went out with before my husband treated me like a doormat. I mean, you wouldn't think that someone with my personality would allow that, but I was Debbie the doormat to every guy. My self-worth wasn't so great, apparently. So it was miraculous to me that a guy that I was going out with would actually let me choose the movie and wasn't dictating what was going to happen and being, domineering. So that was pretty much it for me. We've been together ever since. We were engaged after, we moved in together after 3 months. We were engaged after 8 months, and we were married after a year and a half.
Yeah, I actually happen to know behind the scenes that Steve fell in love with you pretty quickly on in the relationship, and he is a terrific guy. And speaking about, one of the things I think women are really curious about is how do you manage And we've interviewed a lot of women here, and especially those who have achieved such great levels of success, and found that it was not for the support of their husband, who really do the heavy lifting at home. In many cases, a lot of husbands have stepped out of their careers to help manage the family for a period of time. What role has Steve taken in helping you achieve your goals? Because obviously your family's in Florida. They're not up here with you, correct?
Right.
So
Yes.
how does that work?
I commute back and forth, which was a decision we made when I was elected, when I was running for Congress. We knew we wanted to raise our family in South Florida, and I feel like you need to be connected to your district. And Steve was born and raised in South Florida, and that's what his career is. Steve is known affectionately in our office, named by me, as Saint Steve. He'll be the first Jewish saint, and we've already got that lined up with the Pope. I think it's the Pope that makes those decisions, and it was. I could never do what I do without my husband. He's amazing. He did not have to put aside his career because fortunately he's a banker. He's the vice president of the loan department at a small community bank, and he works for a guy that is just like him, who understands that Steve's wife is trying to help make the world a better place, and makes it possible for Steve to leave work pretty much whenever he needs to go get our kids and bring them to practices. My husband coaches 3 of my son's teams. He's pretty unbelievable. And in fact, by the way, he ultimately told me that he deliberately didn't call me back because he had decided that he was done dating and he was on the hunt for a Miss Right, and that he knew that when you chase a girl that you like and call her too much and show too much interest, that she doesn't want to be anywhere near you. So he didn't call me back on purpose. And that's the difference between my being, it didn't matter, to very interested. And so it was lucky for me that he did that.
See, so any men who are watching this tape in the future realize that, you got to have that right level of interest.
Yes, exactly.
Too much scares you off.
But he's amazing. He holds the fort down. He gets them to where they need to go. But we really have to, we really have established a complementary parenting style, because we both have our strengths. We haven't talked about my kids yet, but we have 3 kids. They're incredible, wonderful.
And the first set were?
I have twins. Yeah,
First 2 were twins.
First kids are twins. They're 9, a boy and a girl, Rebecca and Jake. And then we had a little girl 4 years later, Shelby, who I was 2 months pregnant with when I announced for Congress. So that was fun. But I'm really the school parent. You know how there's always one of the 2 parents that is the one that's more focused on school and homework and making sure they're ready for tests and doing their projects. Only I have to do that from 1,000 miles away most of the time. So we do that in a very creative way. I get faxed their homework and their review sheets and their assignments, and I, as best I can, try to manage it from up here.